forward. Next, we're going to welcome on stage a keynote speaker who is going to share with us on Hong Kong, the next top sustainable city. We're honored to have Mr. David Liu, founding advisor for Moment FinTech and regional managing director, head of ESG advisory APAC of Kroll, to share with us. So before we invite David on stage, let's get ready and to welcome him to talk about this, how we're going to expect and welcome and to continue to write the Hong Kong success story as the next top sustainable city. So now please welcome Mr. David Liu.
Hello, everybody. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much. I was going to say thank you very much to such a dedicated crowd. So for sticking through the whole day and towards the end of the day. I hope everyone's enjoyed this amazing investment and promotion week put on by Invest Hong Kong and the Invest Hong Kong team. I know I've thoroughly enjoyed listening, learning, and being inspired throughout today. So I will quickly introduce myself, David Liu. I'm with Moment FinTech, and we are a platform that is bridging ESG and FinTech, working behind the scenes to help support the green tech and climate tech ecosystem. I'm here today to talk about Hong Kong as the next sustainable top city. Actually, personally, after sitting through today's very interesting and insightful sessions and panels, I don't think you need me to come and convince you that Hong Kong is the next top sustainable city. But since I am here, I will help provide some data and facts that will complement what you've seen here today at this amazing event. And how did we go about doing this? We took a few steps and we looked at rankings and indexes. There's many rankings and indexes out there. But what we did was we looked at the Arcadis Top Sustainable City Index. Why? Because they are one of the most referenced and utilized indexes in the public. So they have a robust methodology that looks at 51 individual metrics, 26 indicator themes based on 3 pillars of sustainability. PPP, not private-public partnerships, which we'll talk about later, but people. They looked at the quality of social infrastructure in a city. They look at planet. They look at the quality of natural environment of a city. And then profit. They look at the quality of the economy of a city. There are 3 PPP pillars, well, actually 4 Ps. And let's jump right into it. We looked at the 10 most sustainable cities that they ranked in 2022 based on those 3 pillars. I'll go by quickly. Normally we do a countdown from 10 to 1, but we're just going to go from the top down. So Oslo is your number 1 city. I was going to do a quiz and see if everybody could guess, but in the interest of time, we'll go through. Stockholm, Tokyo. Tokyo, by the way, was the only Asian city in the sustainable index for now. Copenhagen, Berlin, London, Seattle, Paris, San Francisco, and Amsterdam to round off the top 10. What makes a city sustainable, right? We took a look. A city is only as sustainable as its key elements. While the parameters used to rank are going to be very multiple and varied, we at Moment FinTech felt that there are 5 key parameters that actually we can use to do a pulse check of the sustainability of a city. Having a clear strategy. Any of these cities have to have a bold and clear strategy to achieve their net zero carbon goals. Transportation. Every top sustainable city has to have a transportation that is public, accessible, infrastructure in place. And this can include walkable city, bike routes, and public, as I mentioned, public and accessible public transportation. Infrastructure, you've got to have sustainable public infrastructure and green building standards. Capital, we heard a lot about that today. Reliable access to funding for sustainability-focused startups. And talent, very important. Availability of high-quality talent in sustainability-focused fields of industries. We felt that these 5 key parameters would be a good pulse check. So we also took a look. Top 5 cities. We took out of the 10, we took the top 5. Let's take a look. Don't get me wrong. Every one of these cities, they have a strategy. They have transportation, they have infrastructure, they have capital and talent. But we took a deeper dive and took a deeper look to see which of these key parameters sort of excelled in each of these cities. So that's why you'll see Oslo has certain ones, Stockholm, Tokyo, Copenhagen, Berlin, different ones that they excel in. How does Hong Kong compare? This is the next step we took, right? Because we wanted to see, do we have the framework here that all the other top cities have? Yes, strategy. Hong Kong has a carbon intensity target of 65 to 70% by 2030. They were using 2005 as a base, and that's 26 to 36% absolute reduction on carbon emission. And they want to achieve the net zero by 2050, which many of the other cities have also set in place. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Transportation. Hong Kong has a Walk in Hong Kong initiative that started in 2010 that aims to prioritize pedestrian accessibility and to foster a walkable city. We've already seen that, and we've seen it on the waterfront. The development of that walkway is a great endeavor. What people don't realize, EV charging. Hong Kong has a ratio of 1 EV charger per 6 electric vehicle cars. That is among some of the top sustainable cities. And then we're testing electric ferries in 2023 with electric buses already tested earlier this year. And actually, I believe in October, we've got the first delivery of an electric double-decker bus. So, infrastructure. Of course, Guangzhou-Shenzhen Hong Kong Express Rail link, reducing the travel time between Hong Kong and Shenzhen. Of course, right now, with restrictions, we haven't been able to utilize it as much, but the framework is there. We're prepared. Introduction of BEAM Plus Green certification to help promote and encourage buildings in Hong Kong to achieve the carbon reduction. And then with the chief executive's policy address yesterday, 6 new infrastructure projects are announced, right, to improve connectivity across the regions. Capital. This one, Invest Hong Kong had pulled data on. Number of startups in Hong Kong grew by 4 times over a period of 7 years since 2014, with venture capital investment surging over 33 times, from 1.24 billion to 41.7 billion in this period. And then later we'll talk about the chief executive's policy address as well. That helps the capital. And talent. 5 universities in Hong Kong are in the top 100 world university rankings, right, for 2023. 4 of them being in the top 50. We also have, from yesterday's policy, dedicated teams now liaising with top universities globally to attract talent to Hong Kong and also to encourage Hong Kongers to return to Hong Kong. And one of the things I'll just talk about on the talent front, which I've mentioned on other discussions before, is we need to keep the talent in Hong Kong. And a lot of companies always are concerned about talent retention, talent leaving your company, moving around, right? We've always felt, our loss is Hong Kong's gain if they stay in Hong Kong. We never see talent leaving our company as a negative. We see it as a positive. Because why? They're going to another company. It's planting the seeds. It's then growing the ecosystem. But we need to keep that talent in Hong Kong. So this is just I'm gonna run through a quick comparison because we took a look at Hong Kong and the other cities. Oslo excels in strategy, transportation, which we've already talked about, Hong Kong has as well. Stockholm, strategy, transportation capital, but hey, Hong Kong has that as well. Tokyo, transportation, infrastructure, talent, but you know what? Hong Kong is right there with Tokyo. Copenhagen, transportation, infrastructure. Of course, you've heard me say it, we've got it as well. And one thing, if people who really do follow the index and rankings of top cities, you'll wonder why Copenhagen, we didn't put strategy as the area where they excel. Copenhagen was one of the first cities that came out and said they had an ambitious goal. They're gonna hit net zero in 2025. That's bold. Unfortunately, they recently also had to abandon that goal because they know they're not gonna be able to reach it by 2025. Some people will say that's negative. We don't think so. We think it's good to be bold, take that chance. Like startups, you might fail, but get back up. They now are adjusting it to, same as many of the cities, including Hong Kong, they're gonna hit net zero by 2050. But the other positive is since 2009, when they announced their ambitious goal, they've already reduced carbon by about 70%. So we don't see that as any failure. But it's just not there because they had to abandon it. And then Berlin, same, infrastructure, capital. So the other thing is, we've got the same framework as these top cities. What is our competitive advantage? What is our, let's call it legally unfair competitive advantage? A friend of mine uses that term. So what is it? And the key thing is, how do you sustain a sustainable city? How do you keep it going? One of the things that we feel we can help support as private and as public is creating a marketplace. We're gonna focus on the green tech marketplace for now, but a marketplace, because we can build an ecosystem that then has a flow and a circular cycle, as you see about the circular economy, but this is about a green marketplace. Holistic green marketplace creates a virtuous cycle, as I mentioned, with capital inflow that kickstart market activity, attracts talent, revitalizes job markets, driving investments in infrastructure, transportation, and creating a climate that encourages bolder strategies to drive effective progress. A green marketplace, a green tech marketplace, would be a catalyst. This is what is maybe the missing link, in a sense, to kick us above the other cities, right? And we're there and poised. I did add this in because it came out in the policy address yesterday. Hong Kong is also launching a new office for attracting strategic enterprises. So that also helps foster this marketplace. Why is it important? It's important because a lot of companies, I'm not talking about the B2C marketplace, I'm talking about the B2B marketplace. That's the hardest. We want to foster companies, we want to foster companies to succeed. As a first step, if we have a marketplace for all of these new innovative green tech companies, then they have a better chance of getting footing, grounding, and succeeding. That is why we feel that is a key element. So now comes the fun part. I'd love to showcase and highlight a few of the companies we collaborate with, right? And you'll see most of these companies I'll go into, I'm not gonna talk about their own ESG sustainability programs. They all have that. They are all looking at that internally. But what they're doing is also helping to contribute to this marketplace, this ecosystem. So NIFIN, we call it New Financial. They're a green energy supplier. So they are providing solar projects, but their innovative way of doing this is they'll put the financing up front. So you actually, as a client or a company, don't need to spend that CapEx. They will then work through a project, a bespoke project, and then share in the savings. They've already developed into many, many markets. They started here in Hong Kong. But what's important is they're also working with other clean tech and climate tech and green tech companies. So in a sense, they're helping that ecosystem. They themselves are doing good, but they're also bringing up the rest of the market. Hong Kong Broadband Network, local homegrown company, doing the same thing. When I borrowed that term, LUCA, legal and unfair competitive advantage, I was borrowing the phrase from the CEO of Hong Kong Broadband Network. So not only do they have ESG at the core of their own DNA, but they're also helping Hong Kong's only tech-enabled, state-of-the-art waste lead acid battery conversion, Hong Kong Battery Recycling Center. So this actually is important because they're helping another clean tech, green tech company from Hong Kong, but it's also helping reduce carbon because why? You don't need to ship the battery to another place to recycle. This is done locally, and it reduces the carbon footprint. Kin is another Hong Kong company. They're in food. We'll talk about food tech. We are impressed with what they're doing because not only are they trying to produce food that is at a very reasonable price for the marketplace, for everybody, using sustainable products, local farms, and also reusable, compostable packaging. It's not only that, that's already great. What Kin is doing is they're helping build that key vertical city, right? Because what they're looking at the ecosystem is that they will design food for a vertical city, for designing it for the people of that. So in the sense, if you think about it, a vertical city in an urban area is where the people can live in a city all within a certain walkable space, a certain radius. How does that help? That cuts down on not public transportation, but it cuts down on driving, carbon, et cetera. You walk, everything is within reach. You have that whole ecosystem. That's what's important. And what Kin is also doing is working with other clean tech, green tech companies to achieve this. So they, in essence, are also contributing to this marketplace. And the most important, they're also, they're in the Swire properties. And that leads to Swire. So most people already know Swire, but I think most people know Swire. They don't know Swire for some of the great innovative work they do. We know this. So in addition to helping support companies like Kin, they also, Swire Properties, working with the Swire Pacific Sustainable Development Fund, which we've got some people in the team members here as well. They are working in a very innovative framework. The development fund is an internal fund for helping their operating companies. And how did this come about? They actually brought in a company called Spirit from the US into Hong Kong. So they're helping technology, clean tech companies come to Hong Kong, establish, get their footing, and have a marketplace. Not only is it helping themselves, it's also helping the clean tech, green tech market. Because Swire Properties took a look and realized that 90% of the food waste, that was the area they were tackling, was not among themselves, but within their tenants. So you as a company could have the best initiatives, programs, and efforts, but for property developers, a lot of that lies within your tenants. So they wanted to find a solution, and they brought a solution. But that helped the ecosystem. That helped bring companies here, helps bring jobs, talent, and then builds back into that cycle. So with that, I think hopefully this will give a little bit of insight to add to what you've seen today, throughout today with the panel and sessions, of why Hong Kong is your next top sustainable city. So thank you very much, and thank you Invest Hong Kong for such a great event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you for the insightful sharing. Thank you. Please be seated. Now, ladies and gentlemen, today's program is closing to an end, but before that, let's welcome on stage Mr. Charles